be pretty crazy if you think the earth is flat. Cause we all know that it's a globe, and that's a simple fact. So I said, what about the photographs that NASA takes from space? He gave a knowing smile and told me, man, those things are fake. But what about the videos that I've seen with my two eyes? What about them? He replied, have you heard of CGI? Oh, NASA's faking everything that you have ever seen. And as for flying to the moon, well, they ain't never been. Indeed, my friend, their line scum is there for you to see.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting edition of the Flat Earth Podcast. Curious Jay alongside me, Dave from deep inside the rabbit hole for another 1 hour or so of Flat Earth audio once again. Dave, how you doing this week, brother?
Jay, I'm doing well. Glad to be here. Love talking to you about the Flat Earth. Yeah.
It's quickly become one of the highlights of my week as well. When we sit down and record these things, we're recording this just a few days before the solar eclipse. This episode will probably drop the weekend right before the big solar eclipse on August 21st, which we're going to talk about later on in the show. But let's talk about what else has happened this week.
There was a great video that came out by a channel called The Truth is Stranger Than Fiction. And the name of the video was, I Remember When the World Was Still Round.
Yeah.
What did you think of it, Jay?
For anyone who's looking for a flat earth science or specific evidence of flat earth, it's not one of those. It's just one of those kind of introspective thought videos where he's just remembering a time back when he was a child that all these conspiracies and things just didn't seem to be there. Things were so different. I'm not going to give it away. It's worth watching for sure. It's really good.
It's 7 minutes long, and he speaks so genuinely. I listened to it 4 times, and it's a great video.
You know, I've always liked his channel, and I kind of giggle to myself when I do watch his videos because I think, oh, this poor guy. It sounds like he's about to end it all. He's so sad, but I don't think he's really sad.
He does sound like he's at the end of his rope. Like if you heard somebody talking like that, you'd be like, whoa, hey, are you okay? But he's just saying what people are ignoring.
Yeah, you're right. He speaks the truth. If you're listening to his truth and you want to come on the podcast, we'd love to have you on and talk to you for a little bit. You know what? We got some speak pipes, Dave.
Let's jump into those.
You want to jump into those? We got some people that have called in and left messages for us. So let me pull up our first speak pipe from Kenneth.
I just got a quick question here for you. So I heard you on Raven's podcast and thought you made some pretty interesting points. So I went on YouTube and looked at the videos you recommended. And also I looked at some other videos. Flew down the whole wormhole from that video and went on to the next. And after a while of looking at these videos, I just thought to myself, you know what? Well, they have to have some type of footage to, debunk this or to even show that the Earth is round. So I typed in live footage of Earth, and it shows that they do have cameras up in space that are recording Earth, and it does seem to be round. So I was wondering if you've seen these videos, or is that anything you can explain to me, just to get a little more information from you. I really do enjoy the podcast that I have heard, and I will continue to listen.
Great speak pipe message there from Kenneth. And Dave, yes, you went on the Raven Effect. It's a podcast by professional wrestler Raven. And you told me, go check it out, go listen, tell me what you think. And you were a little bit frustrated because of your correspondence with him and you weren't breaking through, so to speak. But as someone who wasn't privy to your conversations before and after the podcast, I got to say, I thought it was good. I thought you did a good job on there. And, he wasn't that receptive, but you sounded great.
He started out asking good questions and listening. He actually let me talk at the beginning. But then the cognitive dissonance kicked in and he just wouldn't hear anything. He cut off the interview after about 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I'm not sure. I didn't time it. And then we had some emails back and forth over the week and he just refuses to see. It was one of those situations that was so frustrating. He's like, every skydiver that's jumped says they could see the curve. Are they all in on the conspiracy? Game, set, match, he writes. And he sends me a picture of a bunch of skydivers where the camera is at an angle and the Earth is in the corner of the picture. And I look at it, I put a straight edge on it. It's flat as can be. So I rotated it, put a straight edge on it and showed him flat, and he refuses to see.
Yeah.
So you got
No, I was just going to say, yeah, you sent me the picture that he sent, and I said, wait, why would he send this one? Because it's flat in the background. And yeah, I just, it was really interesting to listen to, not knowing anything other than when you said, go check it out. Because I definitely noticed a very abrupt shift in Raven himself, because I would say the first 15 minutes, maybe, he was very receptive and was enjoying the conversation and the back and forth.
So I think in that interview, I actually at one point said, "You do realize we didn't go to the moon." Was that in that interview?
Yes.
And his response was, "Of course we went to the moon." And I'm like, "Oh my God. Oh my." I'm like, "All right, he hasn't done any research." And we ended up talking about the Challenger hoax. And we got stuck on that for, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes of the interview. And in one of his correspondence to me, he sends to me, he says, "Did the brother not exist for the one guy before the Challenger accident? If so, you're wrong." Well, that makes think about that logic. The brother did not exist. And then after he died, the brother did exist. And he thinks that's proof that I'm
what
wrong.
He's saying, I think, is if the brother existed, if there's proof of the brother existing before the crash, then your theory is wrong.
No, that's not what he's saying. He said, did the brother not exist before the crash? If so, you're wrong. Do you see how people are so indoctrinated they can't see? Here, another one that he goes off on was, eclipses, lunar eclipses prove the Earth is a ball, and that's what Bill Nye taught everybody, and that's one of Bill Nye's top proofs that the Earth is a ball. But there's two things. Everybody's heard this. That's already a flat earther. There's been many eclipses where the sun and the moon are above the horizon during the eclipse, therefore ruling out the Earth, which is underneath them. And even if it wasn't, the Earth is, from perspective of that line of sight between the sun and the moon, is rising up into that, creating the shadow, but the shadow comes in on the moon from the top, which is impossible. So I asked him, I said, get a flashlight, get two balls, shine in them one, and raise another ball up from the bottom and make the shadow come in on the top. Instead, he comes back with 15 other things from Metabunk and from Snopes. And I answer all of them, and he accuses me of being stuck in my belief system and unwilling to look at evidence. And basically he says, we have all the evidence for the ball, and flat earthers have none for flat Earth. And I'm like, what about the items I'm just showing you? And I said, one question at a time, and he comes back with 15. He says, what about lunar eclipses, and what about solar eclipses, and explain Tunguska and Tunguska. Am I saying it right?
Tunguska is closer than I could have gotten with that one.
And the meteor and other meteor events. And how do you know? Oh, listen to this. I showed him the NASA fakery where they've been caught with wires. Listen what he writes. This is about NASA. How do you know they didn't add the wires in to fool you into being a flat earther? They would have even more control over you that way.
Yeah, I don't really see the line of thinking there.
So now NASA is faking videos of them in space just to poke fun at us because we think the Earth is flat.
So now NASA is faking subtle wire mishaps in order to make us think that the Earth is flat. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. I don't know Raven personally. I do have a few friends we have some mutual friends, and spoken very highly of the guy being a super smart individual. So I tend to believe that he is one. However, this is one of those topics, Dave, and we run into it all the time, where it really does prove just how strong indoctrination is.
It's so strong, they're blind. Listen to this one. He goes, and finally, jump out of a plane. According to all skydivers who jump high enough, they see the curvature of the Earth. Or is every single skydiver in on the conspiracy? Game over, set match. You owe me $500. And then he sends me that picture of the perfectly flat Earth at an angle.
Where's he finding the fact that every single skydiver ever has said?
And that's
what?
another thing. He whenever anyone says anything pro flat Earth or negative flat Earth, when they say all flat earthers, I'm out, because all is never anything in any group of people. It's never all. It's never all. Yeah, all you flat earthers, and that's over. It's over at that point.
I think the same way. And to get back to Kenneth's question in his SpeakPipe message, he asked about the camera footage of the Earth, the live footage of the Earth. Now, I'm not sure which footage he's talking about, but if it's the ISS, I would just send him straight to Jaron's channel. To go to Jaronism on YouTube and watch the volumes and volumes of great material that he's done.
There are no cameras in space.
No, there's not.
There's not. And now I think there are a couple videos. There's one of the Earth spinning where it shows one full spin and the clouds don't change. So if you're listening, check it out. The clouds don't change in 24 hours. Go outside, do a time lapse for 10 minutes of the clouds and watch how much they change.
It's hard to address which video, because I'm not sure. He just said he found videos online. I'm not sure if it's the Kilimanjaro satellite, if it's the ISS,
Kilimanjaro.
What's the Japanese one?
The Tamaguchi.
Yeah, there you go. Much better than what I said. I'm not sure if it's the Japanese satellite that's supposedly, spitting out the images of Earth all the time, or if it's the Epic Deceiver. So it's hard to address like which problem.
So Kenneth, go on Jaronism's channel and you'll find it there. He's addressed all of them. And it's not our opinion that these things are CGI. It's hard evidence that they're CGI, that there's just impossibilities of what they're showing. Clouds don't move for 24 hours, then you know it's fake. Here's something else. And I've noticed with all the high altitude balloons, when the balloons are really up, it's hard to see anything through the atmosphere. Do you ever notice that? Where there's never you don't see vivid colors on the land because you have to look through that much atmosphere. It's just like when
so much atmosphere.
Yeah, when we're looking up into the sky, we're seeing a limit. We're not seeing into space because we can't see all the way because we're blocked, even on a clear day. I've been thinking about this lately. So those pictures that NASA has where we see, bright paintings of Earth, it's a painting. It's not real. You can't see those vivid colors through miles of atmosphere ever.
No, you can't. And what is the Japanese satellite? I can't even think of it right now, but the Japanese satellite.
I can hear Paul. I hear Paul on the plane screaming the name through it. He's screaming at us. He's screaming at his computer.
I apologize. It's just not.
The Himawari.
Himawari. Thank you. What did I say originally?
Yeah,
I said something.
Mount Kilimanjaro.
Yeah, Kilimanjaro. Close, but not even close. But the Japanese satellite footage, that is a classic example of like, where's the haze? Because it is so vivid, it is so unbelievably detailed that it can't be real. Yeah. Like, it's impossible.
So also another place to look is Paul on the Plane's channel. Paul on the Plane. He has broken down those images using photo forensics and other known software, proving that these are composites and not real pictures, period. It's not even a question. Again, it's not a theory. A lot of ball earthers say, well, no matter what we show you, you're going to say it's fake. No, that's not true. We have to prove that it's fake. And that's what we do. We prove, and Paul has proven these things fake.
Well, and here's what I tell people. Go and Google this. Go to Google and do a search for 2014 NASA Epic First Photos Earth, okay? And what you're going to end up finding if you scroll through there and look at the results is a lot of news releases that came out, I believe, towards the end of 2014 when they got their Deceiver satellite up there in place, right? The announcement or the press release that NASA themselves put out clearly states that these images that are coming to us in 2015 are going to be the first real images of Earth since 1972. So they straight up acknowledged the CGI stuff. They say everything else in between has been composite or whatever. So the only ones that they even claim in their news releases are real are the Epic Deceiver and the Apollo missions. And then you go back and you watch, what's the film, the documentary, Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. and you watch the segment in there where they show the footage of how those guys obtained their first footage of the Earth, the ball Earth. And then you look at the epic footage, like you say, where it goes around, the clouds don't move. And you say, well, wait a second. If they're only admitting to these being real and they're that easily debunked, well, the work is done.
Yep.
I found that one of the easier things when I first got into this. I didn't have to spend much time on it because NASA themselves took care of everything from like 72 to 2015, 43 years of all those images of Earth that they put in their textbooks and things like that. All of them, admittedly, on their own admission, are composites.
Absolutely.
Let's move on to another speak pipe, Dave.
Hey guys, how's it going? I'm up in Alberta, Canada here. I just wanted to chat with you real quick. I love what you guys are doing. Keep it up. I wanted to show my support, but I also had a question. There's a couple people that I know, even flat earthers, are talking about how they believe that the Earth is accelerating upwards always at 1G. I just wondered, what do you guys think of this? Because I know it's not a super popular opinion, and it's not mine at all. And I think it kind of makes us seem a little bit silly when we're trying to describe our version of gravity or lack thereof, and it kind of makes general flat earthers look a little bit silly for thinking this. What do you guys think of it? And yeah, thanks a lot for your time.
So good question, Greg.
Is it really a good question?
No, I mean, no, it's a good question when you're getting into this, but
I guess it is a good question. Sorry, Greg.
Yeah, it's a good question about a silly claim. How's that?
Yeah. It comes from the Flat Earth Society, which is a controlled opposition site where they mix a little bit of truth in with utter nonsense, just like that, to make people dismiss the flat Earth and never look at it again. And it's highly effective.
It certainly is. And that was kind of my point last week when we talked about the article on the Flat Earth Mothers.
Yeah.
You know, so many articles when they do these Flat Earth articles in anything that's even remotely mainstream media, they throw that in there. The Flat Earthers also believe that the Earth is a disk moving upwards in space at a speed of such and such. So many articles do that, and it drives me nuts. And, you know, I've heard other people speculate that the Flat Earth Society is a total psyop. What do you think on that?
100%, government controlled. Absolutely. There's guys that have been on there for years that have, 5,000 or 10,000 posts that are, would you spend years on a place adamantly going after every comment in there? Absolutely not.
No, I wouldn't.
It's not something we do. Speaking of articles, did you see the Philly Voice today doing their second article about the flat Earth?
Yeah, I sure did.
Yeah. Did you notice that they had a quote in there from the Flat Earth podcast?
That was awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Big shout out right now to the Philly Voice. That was awesome. And I think what we're seeing here is on a lot of these, the regional publications, the regional news and newspapers, where, like, in other words, Fox News and CNN, they still have yet to really go into this. But the regional newspapers, the regional radio stations, that sort of thing, they're less controlled. Don't get me wrong, they're all owned by the same companies, but there's less of a voice from the top in those smaller outfits. So they have a little more freedom to do things, to do these articles. And I think we're starting to see a little bit of a turn in the tone they're taking.
I will say that the guy was too fair, because after he had, myself, Bob, a couple other people make some really good points, then he had on the worst trolls at all. They had, Flat Earth Math and Tim Osman and somebody else. And they were just, putting out their ad hominems with nothing behind them, just throwing out word salad nonsense. And they say it well, and people that don't think,
well, it reaffirms it reaffirms the indoctrination that we've all been taught.
You can say something that has really no information in it, and if it helps you hold on to your core belief, you're going to buy it. Rather than, it's easy to fool somebody, it's extremely hard to convince them they've been fooled. And man, did I experience that with Raven this week.
You hit a brick wall there, buddy.
Raven, if you're listening, we'd love to have you on the show, and we'll discuss any points you have one at a time.
The one negative thing about trying to go on a podcast or do an interview with the media or anything when it comes to flat Earth is that we already know we're facing such a wall of resistance, right? But also, it's just not something that can be done in a 20-minute segment. I mean, we can throw out as many points as we want and we can refute as much as we can, but it didn't take you and I 20 or 30 minutes to believe the Earth wasn't round.
The problem is when you're having your core belief from childhood destroyed, you will do anything you can to protect it. And when one proof, all you need is one broken link in a chain and the chain is broken, but you'll throw out 50 other things to distract you from looking at the one thing. I say, let's take one thing at a time and come resolve, hey, is the eclipse possible on a flat Earth? Absolutely. It makes a lot more sense on the flat Earth.
Yeah.
But is it also possible on a ball Earth? Maybe. Jaron did a video this week showing that, with the sun at 93 million miles, the moon at 180 or 238,000 or whatever it is to the Earth, that the angular difference, almost everybody on the side of the globe Earth that is facing the eclipse should see it, rather than just a small little swath across the United States. Except if you look at it as a small local occurrence,
then it makes sense
that the people right under it are going to see it. So it makes so much more sense. We can't model. It's not easy to model something 93 million miles. But I actually think somebody like Dr. Zach, if you're listening in AutoCAD, someone that's really good in AutoCAD, if you can get the size of the sun, the size of the moon, and the size of the Earth, and see if everyone on the side of the Earth during the eclipse can see it, I think that they would. I think everyone on the side of the ball Earth, I know it's funny, ball Earth, should see it.
All right, more Speak Pipes and more eclipse talk in just a second, right after this break. We'll be right back.
Following announcement has been paid for by
the Flat Earth Podcast.
You want to leave a digital voicemail for us? Head over to theflatearthpodcast.com and click on the blue link that reads, "Got a question? Send us a message."
You can do it from your iPhone or from your computer. First time you do it on your cellular phone, you'll have to download a little app. But after that, you can leave us all kinds of messages. If you want to be anonymous, you can make up a name, make up an email address. We don't care. We just want to hear what you have to say.
We'll do our best to play or answer these questions and comments on future episodes right here on the Flat Earth Podcast. Download the SpeakPipe app and check us out at theflatearthpodcast.com.
The Flat Earth Podcast.
If you're watching this audio on YouTube right now and you're not familiar with the world of podcasting, there's a far better way to listen to the Flat Earth Podcast each and every week.
Think of it like your TiVo or your DVR is to your television. You subscribe to whatever show that you like. Whenever a new episode comes out, it records it, downloads it, and notifies you that there's a new episode for easy listening anywhere. Another great feature on most podcast players is you could speed up if you want to hear stuff even faster, or more importantly, it has a jump back and jump forward 30 seconds so you could skip annoying announcements like this.
We're on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and so many more. If we're not on your favorite podcast app, send us a message and let us know to make sure we will be.
The Flat Earth Podcast.
I'm talking to Robbie from Celebrate Truth the other day. Robbie Davison, who's responsible for the Flat Earth Conference, Dave. We were talking about the knee-jerk reaction in people to the Flat Earth. And it was like, the first reaction is always laughter and ridicule. And then when they realize that you're serious, or if you persist to them, it's amazing just how many people respond with anger, get hostile almost. And I think it goes back to think about when you're, say, 3 or 4 years old, right? Everything changes in your life. The president changes every 4 years or every 8 years. People move houses. Your school changes. Your teacher changes. Your jobs change. You get new cars. Everything changes. Telling someone that, hey, I'm serious, you've been fooled, the earth is not a ball spinning in space, it's almost the equivalent of saying, hey, your mom's not really your mom. People would laugh at that and say, yeah, right. But if you persisted and said, no, I'm dead serious, your mom is not your mom. She's not who you think she is. It invokes that same sort of emotional response. Would you agree?
Absolutely. It's ripping out your core belief. When you're a little kid and they're teaching you about the globe, which they do at a very young age, that's a core belief. It goes in, it comes from a trusted source, and that is your core belief. And changing a core belief is very difficult. It's the longer it's been in there.
Yeah. How many constants are there in your life from when you're, 2 or 3 years old going on to adulthood? There's not very many. For some, it's maybe religion might stay constant, right? Your religious beliefs. And we all know how people respond when you challenge their beliefs, their religious beliefs. For others, it's, it could just be their parents. But we forget that the ball earth is the one thing that we've been taught as a truth to us as a child. And so when what's your phrase you like to say? Nobody likes to have their ball taken away, right?
Nobody likes having their ball taken away. True.
And don't talk about my mom. So here's another quick message from the Speak Pipe. This is Clay from the Fish Nerds podcast.
I heard you on the Twisted 10 show, and I really enjoyed it. I'm a Earth baller, just to be clear up front. But I've been listening to your podcast. Actually, really, really think it's a fun podcast. I'm really interested in what you're saying. But the question I have is, can you start at the beginning and describe the flat Earth theory? Because it feels like you're starting with the assumption that all the listeners agree with you and understand everything you're saying, which is not true. I do not understand all your points. So if you can start at the beginning, I don't spend time on YouTube. I don't have time to watch the videos. So if you could just describe it, maybe do an episode on here is the theory we subscribe.
Got cut off there, Clay, but we appreciate that call. And he brings up a good point. The flat earth is like a moving train, right? So we're already moving. We're already going down the tracks. And for someone who's coming along, we try to, when we stumble upon different points, we try to say, like you said last week, we try to say the same things over sometimes because it's great for people that are just getting in, right?
Right. Our original plan was to go over ODD's 21 questions for episode 2 and 3 after our opening episode and go over all of them. We just haven't been able to schedule it with him because we have different hours, but we're hoping to get that soon. And we will dive back into the basics of flat Earth. But if you want to start out with ODD's video called A Stranger's Guide to Flat Earth, 21 Questions, you could find it on YouTube easily. That's a good one to give you the basics. And he also made the comment that he doesn't have time to watch YouTube, which is the exact reason that we're doing this podcast. It's for people that are on the move and need audio to keep their minds thinking.
It's kind of a catch-22 because if you start from scratch and just go in order on a podcast, part 1, part 2, and try to explain the flat earth from the ground up, you risk having the thousands and thousands who are already so into this saying, all right, let me know when you get to some new stuff. And then if you cover current things in the flat earth world, you run the risk of not really reaching out the way you should to the newer ones, right? So we're trying to do both. It's a delicate walk.
Yep, we'll get there.
Yes, we will. But I would say this, Clay, if you don't watch YouTube a lot, I totally understand. Send us an email over at info@Flat Earth Podcast because I'd love to get Clay on the line with us, Dave, coming in as a respectful ball earther and start firing away the questions. I think that'd make a great show.
Yeah, absolutely, Clay. Reach out and maybe you come on and get us to talk about the items that you want to hear about. Did you watch the guy the street guy at Harvard?
Yes, the street guy that was bullhorning the everyone about flat Earth. Is that it?
He set up a big booth and he's just out there screaming flat earth truth. And my first comment is, why is it that every time somebody does something awesome, they look like the Unabomber? He's got the giant beard going, but he's super smart. He speaks like a bunch of languages. And, the first video I saw, there was this guy that was just this college kid that was just trolling him. And honestly, if I ever see that guy, I'm going to punch him in the face.
Wait, the college kid or the Unabomber?
The college kid. No, not the Unabomber. He's the man. I want to give him a hug. But Robbie Davidson from Celebrate Truth posted a second video, which was awesome because a whole bunch of college kids stopped and were trying to debate him, and he was they were firing questions on top of questions, but he was firing back answers, and you could see there a whole bunch of them were sitting there with their fingers on their chins, going, thinking. So he's planting seeds, and I love it.
All right, so let's go back for another speak pipe here, Dave. This is Dan, I believe.
Okay.
Just got a question. I know the Earth is flat, and I find it really awkward to bring it up to my friends or family because they think I'm crazy. So basically, I was trying to ask, how do I bring it up without seeming like I'm out of my head and judged for it? That's it. Thanks.
Okay, so how do you approach the flat Earth topic with people? I think we've touched on this a little bit before, but I think it just depends on who the subject is, how well you know them. If you're ready to come out and say I'm a flat earther, if you're not and you think that you're going to get ridiculed, I always start with the flaws in the globe. That's, find a flaw in the globe and start up a conversation that way. What about you?
That I agree. Start with a question that can't, something that can't happen on a globe. Say, just bring up the Mount Canigou. Again, we're the worst with our names on things. That you can see from Paris at 160 miles would have 3+ miles of curvature, but you can clearly see the mountain, which is impossible.
Yeah.
And just start with that. Say, why can we see this if the Earth is a ball? And if you have a thinking person, there's really no way they can answer that.
Yeah, and
don't say the Earth is flat. That's the number one thing. Don't tell them the Earth is flat.
Right. And if you're actually not even wanting to go into the shape of the Earth, there's plenty of things with the heliocentric model itself that you can get your foot in the door with. Like I say, I always like to use the high low pressure system. The laws of thermodynamics specifically goes against what's happening with our atmosphere next to the vacuum of space. And I ask people that all the time. Well, how is it that the little measly little atmosphere of Earth isn't getting sucked off into the large vacuum of space? And it gets people thinking. And, like we've said on the show before, they say, oh, well, gravity keeps it here. Right. But yet you can suck something up through a straw or through a bottle, with a much lesser vacuum. It just doesn't make sense. And, you don't even have to go into the shape of the Earth, in my opinion, to get someone questioning what we've been told.
Correct.
By science.
I've got nothing else to add to that.
Period. Right?
Yeah, period. So the simple answer is pose questions. Don't tell them anything. Ask them, how can this be? And don't tell them the conclusion. They have to find it themselves.
Yes, indeed. All right, let me go to one more speak pipe here. And, thank you to everyone who sent these in. And please keep them coming because we enjoy getting these.
Hey, what's up, Dave and Curious Jay, Flat Earth Podcast. This is Tim from Florida, a.k.a. Flatology. Just want to call in and say I love the show. I love the guests that you guys had on. Marty Leeds and D. Marble were both great. I have a suggestion for a future guest. You guys should have Bill Nye on the show so you can smack him right in his bow tie. Split his wig, Also, wanted you guys to talk about the Eratosthenes argument that Globies like to use, and just wanted you guys to shoot that down on air and, debunk that once and for all. Also, I have a suggestion. You guys should do like a proof of the week where you guys cover some of the best facts surrounding the flat Earth for all the newbies out there who are new to the flat Earth who are just finding the show. And also, what's your take on bullhorning NASA headquarters? I'm thinking about doing that. Anyways, peace.
All right. So as far as bullhorning NASA goes, we already mentioned the Unabomber. Look, doesn't do wonders for your cause, but teach his own, man. I don't know. What do you think about that, Dave?
About bullhorning NASA?
Yeah, just going out there.
One, you can't get close enough anywhere. Two, you'll be disturbing the peace. You'll be caught for trespassing, and it won't go well. And who will see it except NASA employees?
Yeah. It's kind of
I don't think it's an effective mean. You're better off talking to people in the streets of your local city.
I was about to say, if you do manage to somehow get any media coverage, and it's just you out there, you're going to look like the lone nut, right? To most of the people in the world. So I don't know. I admire the will to do so, but as far as doing it goes, I think that there's far maybe more effective ways. I think to spread the word. tell people about this podcast. Tell them to get on the podcast and tell them to call us if they want to discuss this, if they don't believe it.
Absolutely.
Get them on YouTube. All that's, everything. There's a lot of ways to do it.
There's so many different people doing different things. There's authentic intent out there. He's going and taking Uber rides and talking to the Uber drivers. And, he tried talking in a Starbucks, but he got himself thrown out of there. There's a guy on the street that he set up his little booth and he was talking to kids during admissions at Harvard. There's us doing our little podcast. So there's all different ways that people can get out there. But the key is get out there, talk to somebody that's not a flat earther.
Yep. And as far as the other things he said, I thought it was a great idea. The proof of the week, we might have to start doing that to just at least include one proof of the week as far as the flat earth goes to help out the people who are joining in new. And last but not least, he asked about the Eratosthenes shadow experiment. Dave, have we covered that on the show?
Yeah, didn't he? The first thing he said, wasn't it having Bill Nye on as a guest?
Yeah.
Was that what he said?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Bill Nye, we would love to have him on, but will never happen. He'll never come on. And I think that we should get Bill Nye's video where he comes up with the top 5 reasons that we know the earth is a ball, and we'll have somebody else read them as Bill Nye, and we'll respond to them because they've all been thoroughly proven false.
Yes, either absolutely false or it can fit, it works on a globe or a flat earth.
Correct.
So what do you think about the Eratosthenes experiment? To me, that's one that definitely can fall in both baskets. For those who don't know, Dave, you want to break it down for them?
So the Eratosthenes is the story about Eratosthenes. He went to 2 different cities and he put sticks that, or a well and a stick or whatever to measure shadows. And he measured at high noon in both locations, and he could tell one of them had no shadow and the other one had a shadow. And Bill Nye says, this proves that the earth is a ball because there's no other way to get these results. Because in the heliocentric model, the sun is 93 million miles away, and all of the rays hit anywhere on Earth are coming in parallel. But Eratosthenes back then, how would he ever assume that? Because when you look at sun rays, they're not parallel. You see them spreading out through the clouds. And how did he have a cell phone? Did he have walkie-talkies? How did he know what time it was? How did they even communicate? We've talked about this before. Eratosthenes didn't exist in any books that we can find before the 1980s, I think.
Right.
I think that he's a made-up story. But the fact of the matter is, it works perfectly on a flat Earth. With a close sun, get 2 bottles and put them on a table and put a light bulb over one of them. The one that it's over will have no shadow, and the other one will have a shadow. Tell me what the circumference of that table is.
Yeah, you can use the light on your iPhone, right? Turn it on, and like Dave said, put it over 2 different things and move it over at a very low altitude above the bottles, and you'll see the same exact effect. And it's like almost every single science video where they describe the Eratosthenes experiment, they always slip in the little clause of, he knew that the sun was millions of miles away because the light travels in parallel lines. How did he know that?
How did he see that? Nobody ever sees the sun in parallel lines. It's always spreading out.
Yeah, and in 300 BC, there's no way that they, could verify anything as far as the sun's distance. So, and it's ironic that we've got the solar eclipse coming up because, of course, the light travels in parallel lines unless there's a moon in the way, in which case the rays take a dive and they take a sharp angle downward after the moon to create the penumbra and the magic umbra and all that. So Eratosthenes experiment, sure, it fits the globe, but it fits a flat earth too. It's all dependent upon the sun's location.
Right. And Eratosthenes went outside and he looked up at the sun and the moon, and you can tell that they are close and they are approximately the same size, and they both do the same thing. They travel over circling the flat earth.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
It's obvious. The other thing with the moon, people, this is here's the proof of the week. The flat earth podcast proof of the week. There's a crater on the moon that's 40 miles wide. NASA says this crater is 40 miles wide. It's visible with the unaided eye. You can see it. You can't see something that's 40 miles wide at 200 miles away. You can't. It just gets too small. I'm looking at New York City at 25 miles away, and it's tiny. It's tiny. Okay? At 138,000 miles away, I don't even think you could see the moon. Or 200, I'm sorry. I left out 100,000 miles, 238,000 miles.
And yet we are told that we can see the ISS 250 miles up, and it's the same size as a football field.
25 times farther than a 747, and it's not much bigger. If a 747 was 10 miles up instead of 5, you couldn't see it. And people like, there it is. That proves we're in space, because they see a light that you couldn't see. Even if it was lit up by itself, we're supposedly seeing reflected sunlight. But whenever they show us, cameras on the ISS that show the ISS that's always blocking the view of the Earth, of course, it's not lit up. It's like got a little light on it, but it's not lit up like a star like we see.
And how would it be lit up anyway?
Oh my God. Again, the unicorn's coat. I'm telling you, it's blue.
Right. So speaking of the unicorn, let's switch gears for a second, because we are a couple days away from the solar eclipse. The total solar eclipse is going to happen over the U.S. And we've touched on a few of these things before, but let's run down them real quick. What are the things that we, as flat Earth researchers, need to be looking up and studying and figuring out? I personally, the first thing that I've said for over a year now, that 70-mile wide shadow is just impossible.
Yeah, a shadow only gets bigger as an object moves away from whatever it's casting its shadow on. There is a point where it won't get much bigger, I think, but it becomes fuzzier. It definitely doesn't get smaller. It only gets bigger and fuzzier. So
I always say it's the bees. It gets bigger and blurrier.
Bigger and blurrier. There you go.
And I say you can't make. I always tell people, show me with a flashlight, use any scale you want. I don't even care about scale. Just show me how you can get a shadow of an object to get smaller than the object and well defined. You keep it from, no blurry stuff, just boom, a little bitty dot.
I say get one of those, super powerful spotlights, get a baseball and put it 30 baseball widths away from a golf ball, and the golf ball is farther, and then try to cast a shadow with the baseball on the golf ball.
You can't do it. And I know what people say.
It doesn't work.
They say, oh, well, that's not the sun. Right. But the sun is also a light. It is light. It works the same way. And I did a video with someone else about a year ago, and it was posted up, where we did this experiment, where we did the shadow experiment, right? It's on the Agent S channel. And it was called, I think, solar eclipse experiment, something like that, right? And we did it, and the only comment that the Globers could come at you with is that the trolls could come with was, well, it's not to scale, right?
Correct.
So that got me thinking, could I physically do this experiment at scale? Because I thought, all right, let me see how big of a light I could get, and how big of a space would I need. I couldn't do a baseball and a golf ball because of the sun's distance. It would just be, so far out. So I kept going smaller and smaller to bring it down to get that distance in, right? And what I came up with was this. If the Earth were a 1/2-inch ball bearing and the moon was like a little 1/16 of an inch ball bearing, all right, about 1/4 of the size.
Like a BB?
Yep, like a little BB. So, and you say, well, where would it be? Well, it'd be about 15 or 16 inches away. So there's your Earth and your moon, right? Little bitty bearings and about 15 to 16 inches in between them. For our sun, let's say I'm standing with the Earth at the end of an American football field, at the very end of the end zone, where the goalpost is, right?
Okay.
And I'm reaching my hand out to hold the moon 16 inches towards the football field. When you put this scale stuff into everyday terms that people can actually see and relate to, it's mind-boggling. So check it out. I say to people, where would the sun be on the football field? If we're at the very end of the end zone, and, what's the first thing that comes to your head, Dave?
People would say the other end zone.
Yeah, people say the other end zone, I don't know, 80 yards, You would need to put a second football field next to the original football field, end zone to end zone, goalpost to goalpost, and then go to the 50-yard line of the second football field to place your sun. And I say to them, it's pretty far, right? And they're like, holy crap, yeah, that's a long way, because they can visualize that. And then I say, how big would the sun have to be? And they say, oh, it's got to be huge. I'm like, okay, so tell me, on the football field, on the 50-yard line of the second football field, there's the sun. How big does my sun need to be? Do you know what it comes out to, Dave?
No.
5 feet. 5 feet in diameter. So if you're looking at it in a scale-wise, the sun would be a 5-foot ball of fire, right? On the 50-yard line of a football field, and then go another full football field down to get to the ball-bearing Earth and moon.
5 foot wide nuclear furnace that just burns beautifully for billions of years.
Yes, and people start to kind of realize, well, yeah, that is kind of messed up. Like, how would it? And I can't even really see it doing anything to something that far away. And I say, okay, now imagine this. Imagine I take my little half-inch ball-bearing Earth and I tilt it at 23 degrees towards that light that's a football field and a half away, and that's going to cause a drastic temperature change from summer to winter. It's ludicrous, right? If you really wanted to do the shadow experiment at scale, you could not do it. I defy anyone to do it. You can't do it. It just won't happen.
And people like Raven say, well, how do you prove? How about seasons? The tilt of the Earth proves the seasons. I'm like, oh my God, think of the sun as a local heat lamp. That's it. The closer it is, the hotter it is.
That's right.
When it's doing its inner circles, it's our summer.
Yeah, and Raven and them on the show were the ones that were saying, Occam's razor. And I'm like, have you really looked into the heliocentric model? Because they threw out Occam's razor for that one when they put that thing together. I mean, it's just it's ridiculous. But I've said all along, you cannot do an experiment with any light at any distance at any scale where the shadow, like you say, where you move the object towards the light and the shadow gets smaller and more defined. The only place that happens is on the solar eclipse in the heliocentric model.
So while we're talking about the eclipse, this isn't a proof. This is just something that I really believe. And I've talked about it before. Our connection to the Earth and the sun is very important. I don't believe that we can exist off the Earth, at extremely high altitudes. And I think that's kind of been proven. But, I do sun gazing whenever possible when the sky's not filled with chemtrails, and it's really healthy and it makes you feel great. And again, it connects the circuit between your feet in the ground and the electric system that is our electric Earth and sun and our electrical bodies. And I think during this eclipse is a very let's call it a high frequency moment that is could be a once in a lifetime for some of us, or not many opportunities to experience this upgrade, this signal, whatever you want to call it. But here's the thing: if you are in a low vibration of fear, it doesn't matter if you observe the eclipse or not. It's not going to work on you. Even if you're like, oh my God, I can't look at it because I'm going to go blind. That's a low vibration of fear. And then on top of that, oh my God, Kim Jong-un's going to launch nuclear missiles at us and they're going to, assassinate the president and whatever. You got all of this fear and a car is going to run us over, and all of this stuff keeps you in a low vibration of fear. It's equivalent to you're in a really horrible mood and then you go to a concert of beautiful music. You're not going to feel the music. It's not going to work because you're not at that vibrational frequency. So what I tell everyone, what they need to do between now and the eclipse, which could be 24 hours by the time you hear this, is let go of all of your fear and connect with the earth, meditate, ground yourself, and lift your spirits to vibrate at the frequency where this eclipse will benefit you.
Yeah.
How about that?
Well said, man. I couldn't agree more. And I am a little bit bummed out because I've got to work and I can't experience the solar eclipse the way that I was planning to, but I will get to experience it partially from a different location. And I'm planning on doing just that, man, just letting go of everything that day and maybe the day before and really, taking advantage of it because it's not once in a lifetime. In fact, we're going to have another one in 2024, but it is a very, very special occurrence that I think it happens.
This is a big one.
Yeah, and I think it happens for a reason that we don't understand just yet.
Yeah, it's not a rock going in front of a burning ball that's 93 million miles away. This is an energetic moment, an upgrade for humans to enjoy. And again, if you look at the eclipse and it hurts your eyes, then it's hurting your eyes. Don't look at it. But if you can look at it where it doesn't hurt your eyes, in my opinion, view at your own risk, that I think it's extremely beneficial. I actually today around 5 to 6 o'clock, I sun gazed for a full hour. It was amazing.
Were you able to look at it for that long? I mean, or you look at it, look away, look at it?
Look at straight at. I looked at it. I was actually on the phone outside in a comfy lounger chair, and I was talking and I was staring at it. I barely blinked for a full hour, staring right at it.
I'm envious.
Yeah, amazing. But you have to work yourself up to that. If you're new to sun gazing, Google sun gazing, and learn how to do it. And sometimes you start with 5 seconds. I started with 5 or 10 seconds, and I worked my way up.
Well, all right, Dave. Anything else before we? I've got. You know what? There was one email I wanted to read. This is from a guy. I don't know if he wants me to say his real name, but it's we'll just call him R. Chase. And he said he's from the Pacific Northwest, loves what we do on the podcast. He's super appreciative. All right. So he's been on the path of truth for a while. He is putting it all together now, but he does have a question. What are some good ways to get involved and to contribute, or just something that you wish more people would do to help this movement? Also, any good networking sites or forums? I don't know about the networking sites. I know that the Flat Earth Conference is coming up. If you can't make it to that, get on the Flat Earth Conference app because there's a lot of people networking on there. But what else could he do to contribute to the movement, Dave?
There's so many ways people can contribute. If you're a video maker, make videos. If any outreach you can do. If some people, if you work for a printing company and you want to donate some printing to help flat earthers or make signs for somebody, do that. There's people that donate stuff all the time. If you are not a person that wants to be out there, I say donate to your favorite channel. My favorite channel, and I'll say it, is Jeranism. That guy puts in so much work, makes quality effort. Let me ask you a question. Here's an analogy, Jay. If you go to a bar and buy some drinks, do you tip the bartender?
What does she look like? Just kidding. Yes, I always yes.
So yeah, bigger tips for the cute blonde. Yes, right. I understand that.
But seriously, no.
But the hunky guy too. You're going to throw him a couple bucks.
Exactly. No, I spent years as a bartender, so I always tip. Yes.
And how much effort did it take him to make that video? And that drink, and how long?
Oh man, depending on the drink, if it's a draft beer, 12 seconds.
And you tip them a couple of bucks, and you're probably going to have more than one beer throughout the night. So the next question is, what if it was top shelf open bar 24/7? Would you tip the bartender?
Top shelf, so it's free drinks. Oh yeah,
it's free drinks 24/7, 365 days a year. You can go anytime you want, and you can have your favorite drink.
Yeah, you're getting my tip. You can call it a cover charge because I'm gonna pay it every time.
So now we just revert that to Jaren's channel or any other channel that you really like that makes quality videos. Spends days on those videos. He makes them. You consume them. They're delicious. They're enjoyable. They're educating you rather than just making you drunk. And they're uplifting you lots of the time. You think you could throw him $1 or $10? He has links on his site. If everybody listening to this and everybody that that enjoys his channel donated $5 a month to him. That's like, would you, like, when someone comes to your house, do you give them a beer? Sure you do.
Yeah.
You know, if they want a beer. If you're out, will you buy someone a drink? Of course you will. You buy somebody a coffee sometimes? Absolutely. You know, think of it that way. Jaron is out there. And by the way, Jaron doesn't know I'm doing this. I'm doing it because I want more of his videos out there. I want him to do more videos. And I know that if everybody just tossed him what he deserves. Actually, no one's tossing him what he deserves because you'd be paying him hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
You'd be paying him hundreds because you can't buy quality movies like he puts out. So right now, go to Jaronism.com. There's plenty of links. You can probably PayPal them. You can sign up for Patreon. It doesn't cost you anything. You know what? A homeless person can donate $1. Okay, Go there, donate $1, donate $5, donate $20. Guess what? You're not going to miss it. And what you will get is better drinks. All the time.
It was funny you said that because the only thing I was going to bring up about your analogy that isn't true, and it actually speaks volumes for Jaron and others who put out these videos, is that, we spend money like that, we tip, whatever, and that's to go out and get to consume a quick drink or a meal or whatever, and it's gone. It's gone in 30 minutes. What you spent your money on is gone. You consumed it, and you'll never get that drink back. The stuff that these YouTube content creators are putting out, it's information, it's research, it's so valuable because it changes your life. For many, it does anyway. It changes so many lives and gets people in a different direction. It wakes you up from a coma you didn't even know you were in.
Yep. And people like Jaron and ODD, another one of my favorites, these guys put in tons of effort.
Oh, yeah.
But Jaron is actually live streaming right now while we're recording this. I'm kind of like bumming that I'm not watching his live stream because I know it's awesome already.
Yep.
So, if you tip a bartender $1 for every round, try tipping Jaron $1 for every video that you like. And by the way, his videos are free if you don't want to tip them. And that's it. Jay, do you think you're going to heaven?
I do.
I think you're going to heaven. I do. I think you're going to heaven. But probably only Coach. If you ask me, probably only Coach. Every $1 you donate to somebody that's trying to wake people up to the flat earth is a heaven point.
Yeah, it's a good point.
It's a point for heaven. Yeah, and if you can accumulate like 20 points a month, you're going to go first class to heaven. All right?
Yeah, we're going first class.
First class.
And I think both of us have practiced what we preach. I know that one of the first things I did to contribute to this movement back before the podcast was donate to a couple different channels. And so we're not saying do as we say, not as we do. We believe what we're saying.
And and we don't want you to donate to us. There's other people out there. We're putting out there. The proud sponsor of the biggest Flat Earth billboard is the Flat Earth Podcast.
Right. That's right. Coming up in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yeah, and that's another thing you could do. Be part of that. Listen to this more. We'll have more information. We're going to have a massive tweet storm. We're going to get it trending on Twitter, and we're gonna get it going to all of the mainstream media. I think it's going to be a huge event, so stay tuned for that.
All right, silly wabbit. Let's call it a show, and we'll be back next week on the Flat Earth Podcast. We appreciate you listening. Again, hit us up on SpeakPipe, leave us a message, or you can email us at info@flatearthpodcast. And until next week, we'll catch you then. Keep it flat.
Because we all know that it's a globe, and that's a simple fact. So I said, what about the photographs that NASA takes from space? He gave a knowing smile and told me, man, those things are fake. But what about the videos that I've seen with my 2 eyes? What about them? He replied, have you heard of CGI? Oh, NASA's faking everything that you have ever seen. And as for flying to the moon, well, they ain't never been. Indeed, my friend, their lying scum is there for you to see. Just take some time, look into it, and the truth will set you free.